Commander Jake Harrison stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution. The massive warship moved through the dark space between stars. Around him, his crew worked at their stations. The ship was quiet except for the soft hum of machines. Lisa Rodriguez sat at the communications desk. She had been listening to the normal radio chatter from nearby systems. Trade ships talked to each other. Space stations sent weather reports. Everything was normal until the signal came in. The first sound was static. Then came a voice speaking in the Zilani language. Lisa knew that language well. She had studied it for 3 years when Earth first made contact with the Zilani people. The voice was filled with fear. Lisa turned up the volume and started recording. Other crew members looked over at her station. The voice was breaking up, but she could understand enough to know something was very wrong. Jake walked over to her desk. He was a tall man with gray hair and scars on his hands from his years in space. He had fought pirates and rebels across the galaxy. But he had never heard fear like this before. "What are they saying?" Jake asked. Lisa worked fast on her computer. She cleaned up the signal and played it again. This time the words were clear. The message made her blood run cold. "This is Captain Zeth of the Zilani Republic. Our homeworld Cathara is under attack. The Krex Dominion has surrounded our planet. They are destroying our ships. They are killing our people. We need help. Please, anyone who can hear this, we need help." The message repeated 3 more times. Then the signal went dead. Jake felt his jaw tighten. The Zilani were friends of humanity. 5 years ago, they had been the first aliens to welcome Earth into the Galactic Council. When a deadly disease hit the Mars colonies, the Zilani had shared their medical knowledge. They saved millions of human lives. Now they were calling for help. Jake turned to his weapons officer, a young man named Ben Carter. "Get Admiral Stone on the line. Priority 1. Ben worked at his station. Within minutes, the face of Admiral Marcus Stone appeared on the main screen. Stone was sitting in his office on Luna Base. Behind him, Earth hung in the black sky like a blue marble. "What do you have, Harrison?" Stone asked. Jake played the Zilani message. Stone listened without saying a word. His face grew dark as the recording played. Stone had been a soldier for 40 years. He had fought in the Belt Wars when miners tried to break away from Earth. He had seen what war could do to good people, but he also knew when fighting was the only answer. "How long ago did this come in?" Stone asked. 7 minutes, Lisa said. Stone looked down at papers on his desk. He was reading reports about the Krex Dominion. For the past 10 years, the Krex had been taking over smaller civilizations. They would surround a planet with warships. Then they would demand surrender. If the people said no, the Krex would attack. Most species in the galaxy were peaceful. They had no real weapons, no strong armies. When the Krex came, they could only give up or die. The Galactic Council always talked about stopping the Krex. They passed laws and made speeches, but they never actually did anything. They were afraid. Stone made his decision. "Harrison, turn your ship around. Head back to Sol system at maximum speed. I'm calling up the fleet." Jake felt a cold smile cross his face. "What are our orders, sir?" The Zilani asked for help. "We're going to give it to them, but we're not sending diplomats or peacekeepers. The Krex want to play rough with our friends. They're about to learn what happens when you mess with humans." The communication ended. Jake turned to his navigation officer, a woman named Kelly. "Brooks, you heard the Admiral. Set course for Earth. Best possible speed." Kelly's fingers moved over her controls. The ship's engines roared to life. The Retribution turned around and jumped to hyperspace. As they traveled through the twisted space between dimensions, Jake thought about the Zilani. They were a gentle people who loved art and music. Their cities were beautiful. Their children played in parks filled with strange, colorful flowers. Now those children were hiding while Krex warships hung over their world like metal vultures. Jake had seen what the Krex did to captured worlds. They took everything valuable and left the rest to die. They treated other species like insects. They thought they were the most important beings in the galaxy. They had never fought humans before. On Earth, Alarms were ringing in military bases around the planet. Ships that had been in dock for months were being prepared for war. Crews were called back from leave. Weapons were loaded and tested. Admiral Stone stood in the command center under Luna's surface. Around him, officers worked at dozens of screens. They were sending orders to every human ship in known space. This would not be like other galactic conflicts. There would be no long talks or gradual escalation. The Kreks had made their choice when they attacked the Zilani. Now humanity would make theirs. Stone picked up his personal communicator and sent a message to the President of Earth. The message was simple. The Zilani need our help. I'm sending the fleet. Full military response authorized. The reply came, back in seconds. Do what needs to be done. Across human space, warships received their orders. They were to gather at Titan Station and prepare for combat. This would be the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled. The Kreks Dominion was about to meet the species from the third planet of a yellow star. They were about to learn why Earth was called a death world. The children of humanity were coming to war. Admiral Marcus Stone stood in the war room deep under Luna's surface. The walls were covered with screens showing every human ship in the galaxy. Red dots showed where they were. Green dots showed where they were going. All the green dots were moving toward one place, Titan Station. Stone had been planning for this day since he became Admiral 5 years ago. He knew that someday humanity would have to fight a real war against alien enemies. He had prepared for everything. Around the room, officers worked at their stations. They were sending orders to ship captains across human space. Every message was the same. Report to Titan Station immediately. Combat loading authorized. This is not a drill. Captain Danny Walsh got his orders while his ship was hunting pirates near the Mars colonies. The UES Vengeful Storm was humanity's newest stealth destroyer. It could become invisible to enemy sensors and strike without warning. Danny read the message twice, then he smiled. He had been in the military for 15 years. Most of that time had been spent chasing criminals and rebels. Now he would finally fight against real enemies. He turned to his crew. They were good people. All of them had fought in small wars across the frontier worlds. They knew how to handle themselves in battle. Listen up, Danny said. We just got orders to join the main fleet. Looks like we're going to war against the Kreks Dominion. They attacked our Zilani friends. We're going to make them regret it. His crew cheered. They had heard stories about what the Kreks did to peaceful worlds. It was time someone taught them a lesson. At Titan Station, the largest military base in the solar system, workers rushed to prepare ships for battle. The station hung in orbit around Saturn's largest moon. Its docks could hold 100 warships at once. Captain Amy Peterson brought her ship to the station first. The UES Iron Hammer was a heavy cruiser built for close combat. Amy had designed many of its weapon systems herself. She was a former Marine who had earned her rank fighting in the Belt Wars. Amy watched as other ships arrived. The UES Thunderstrike came in from the Jupiter colonies. The UES Stormbringer jumped in from the edge of the solar system. Within hours, the space around Titan Station was full of warships. Each ship was different, but they all shared one thing. They were built by humans, for humans. They were tough and brutal and designed to win fights. Lieutenant Commander Rick Turner oversaw the loading of weapons at Titan Station. The warehouses held the most dangerous tools of war that humanity had ever created. Antimatter warheads that could destroy entire cities. Kinetic weapons that hit like asteroids. Nuclear bombs pumped with X-ray lasers. Rick had helped design many of these weapons. He understood what they could do. Most alien species used energy weapons that heated up their targets slowly. Human weapons were different. They were meant to destroy enemies quickly and completely. The most secret weapons were kept in the deepest parts of the station. These were things that broke several galactic war treaties, weapons that no civilized species would ever build. But humans were not like other species. They came from Earth, a world that tried to kill everything living on it. Humans had survived ice ages and volcanic winters. They had fought each other with clubs and swords and nuclear bombs. War was in their blood. Commander Jake Harrison brought the UES Retribution to Titan Station 12 hours after leaving deep space. The massive battleship was the pride of the human fleet. Its main guns could punch holes through planets. Jake met with the other ship captains in the station's briefing room. Admiral Stone appeared on the main screen from Luna Base. "Gentlemen and ladies," Stone said, "the situation is simple. The Krex Dominion has attacked our Zilani allies. Intelligence reports say they have surrounded the planet Cathara with a siege fleet. They are destroying evacuation ships and killing civilians." Stone brought up a map of the galaxy. Red markers showed Krex positions. Blue markers showed human forces. The Krex have never fought a species like us. They expect their enemies to surrender when faced with superior numbers. They use fear and intimidation to win their battles. That stops today. Amy Peterson raised her hand. "What are our rules of engagement, Admiral?" Stone's face grew cold. "There are no rules, Captain. The Krex chose to make war on our friends. They will face the full consequences of that choice. Any Krex ship that does not surrender immediately will be destroyed." Jake looked around the room. Every captain was nodding. They understood what this meant. This would not be a police action or a peacekeeping mission. This would be total war. Captain Danny Walsh spoke up. "Admiral, my stealth ships can get behind their lines before the main battle starts. We can take out their command vessels before they know we're there." "Approved," Stone said. "Turner, what is our weapons status?" Rick looked at his tablet. "We have enough antimatter warheads to glass a dozen worlds. Kinetic penetrators are loaded on all ships. The X-ray laser platforms are online and ready." Stone nodded. "Good. The Krex think they are the strongest species in the galaxy. They have never met humans before. They are about to learn what happens when you threaten our friends." The loading continued for 18 hours. Ships that had never carried warloads were packed with enough weapons to destroy small moons. Medical bays were stocked with supplies for treating wounded crew members. Food stores were filled for long campaigns. As the fleet prepared, messages came in from across human space. Colonists on frontier worlds sent supplies and volunteers. Veterans who had retired years ago asked to return to duty. Even civilian cargo ships offered to help carry supplies. The entire human civilization was mobilizing for war. On Earth, the President met with the Council of Nations. Representatives from every country on the planet gathered in the Great Assembly Hall. "The Zilani Republic has been humanity's strongest ally," the President said. "They saved millions of our people during the Mars Plague. Now they are being attacked by genocidal aliens. We have a moral duty to help them." The vote was unanimous. Every nation on Earth approved military action against the Krex Dominion. Admiral Stone received the formal authorization 30 minutes later. He now had complete authority to wage war against humanity's enemies. The final ship arrived at Titan Station as the sun set over Saturn's rings. The fleet was ready. 47 warships hung in formation around the station. Each one was packed with weapons and crewed by humans who had trained their entire lives for this moment. Stone sent the final message to all ships. "The Zilani called for help. We answer that call with fire and steel. The Krex Dominion ends today. All ships prepare for hyperspace jump to Cathara system." The greatest fleet in human history powered up their engines and jumped into the space between dimensions. They carried with them the fury of an entire species that had never forgotten how to fight. The human fleet traveled through hyperspace for 6 days. During the journey, Commander Jake Harrison studied everything Earth's intelligence services knew about the Krex Dominion. The Krex were large reptilian creatures with thick, scaled skin and powerful jaws. They stood 8 feet tall and weighed twice as much as humans. Their society was built on strength and dominance. The strongest Krex ruled over the weaker ones. For 300 years, the Krex had been expanding across the galaxy. They would arrive at a peaceful world with overwhelming force. Most civilizations would surrender without a fight. The few that resisted were crushed quickly and completely. The Krex had never lost a war. They had never even lost a major battle. They believed they were the most powerful species in the universe. Captain Lisa Rodriguez worked at her communications station during the trip. She intercepted Krex radio messages from the Cathara system. What she heard made her sick with anger. The Krex were talking about the siege like it was a game. They discussed which parts of the planet had the most valuable resources. They made jokes about hunting Zilani civilians for sport. They talked about enslaving the survivors to work in their mines. Lisa played the recordings for Jake. He listened with a face like stone. The Kreks were not just conquering the Zilani, they were enjoying it. On the 4th day of travel, they received an update from Admiral Stone. Long-range sensors had detected the Kreks fleet around Cathara. 38 warships surrounded the planet. Each ship was massive, some over 2 miles long. The Zilani defense fleet had been destroyed in the first day of fighting. Now Krek ships hunted down evacuation transports trying to escape the planet. Any Zilani ship that tried to leave was blown apart by Krek's weapons. Jake called his senior officers to a meeting in the ship's war room. Captain Danny Walsh joined, by video link from his stealth destroyer. Captain Amy Peterson connected from her heavy cruiser. "The Kreks outnumber us," Jake said. "Their ships are bigger than ours. In a straight fight, they might win." Danny smiled from his screen. "Good thing we're not planning a straight fight." Jake brought up a tactical display of the Cathara system. The Kreks fleet was spread out around the planet in a loose blockade formation. Their ships were positioned to catch any Zilani vessels trying to escape. "They're not expecting an attack," Amy said. "Look at their formation. They're set up to hunt refugees, not fight a real fleet." Jake nodded. "That's their first mistake. Intelligence says the Kreks have never fought an enemy that actually fought back with modern weapons. Most species surrender before the shooting starts." Rick Turner joined the meeting from the weapons bay. Around him, technicians worked on the ship's arsenal of antimatter warheads and kinetic weapons. "Our weapons are different from anything they've seen," Rick said. "Galactic civilizations use energy weapons that take time to damage targets. Our stuff hits hard and fast. One antimatter torpedo can take out their biggest ship." The plan was simple. Danny's stealth ships would move behind the Kreks fleet and target their command vessels. When the main battle started, the Kreks would be blind and confused. Jake's battleships would jump in close and hit the enemy with everything they had. No long-range fighting. No gradual escalation. Pure human shock tactics. On the 6th day, the fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Cathara system. What they saw made every human burn with rage. Cathara was a beautiful blue-green world covered with cities and farms. But now it was surrounded by Kreks warships like metal vultures. Smoke rose from the planet's surface where orbital bombardments had hit civilian areas. Debris fields marked where Zilani evacuation ships had been destroyed. Thousands of innocent people had died trying to escape. Jake stood on his bridge and felt the cold anger of his species. Humans had rules about war. You could fight soldiers. You could attack military targets, but you did not kill civilians. You did not hunt down refugees. The Kreks had broken every rule of civilized warfare. Admiral Stone's voice came over the communication system from the flagship. "All ships, this is Admiral Stone. Target identification is complete. We count 38 Kreks vessels. Analysis suggests they are not expecting resistance." Jake looked at his tactical display. The Kreks ships were big and powerful, but they were spread out and unprepared. Some were actually powered down to save fuel. "Open a channel to the Kreks fleet commander," Stone ordered. Lisa worked at her station. Within seconds, the face of a huge reptilian alien appeared on the main screen. This was Fleet Admiral Vexak of the Kreks Dominion. Vexak had bright yellow eyes and teeth like daggers. Scars covered his scaled face from fights with other Kreks. He wore armor decorated with the symbols of conquered worlds. Stone spoke in perfect Kreks language. "I am Admiral Marcus Stone of the Human Defense Fleet. You have made war upon our allies. Withdraw your forces from the system immediately or face the consequences." Vexak stared at the screen for a moment. Then he began to laugh. The sound was like rocks grinding together. "Soft-skinned mammals," Vexak said. "We have studied your species. You are diplomats and traders. You have no stomach for real war. Your ships are small and weak. Your crews are untested." Stone's face showed no emotion. "This is your final warning." Vexak's laughter grew louder. "Warning? You threaten the Kreks Dominion with your handful of toy ships? We have conquered 100 worlds. We have crushed species far stronger than yours. You will surrender now or join the Zilani in death. Tiao, alien gestured to his weapons officers. Target their command ship. Show these mammals what real power looks like. That was the moment that changed galactic history forever. Jake's tactical officer called out. Enemy weapons lock detected. They're targeting the flagship. Admiral Stone's voice was calm and cold. All ships, you are free to engage. Show them what humans do to bullies. Jake turned to his weapons officer. Ben, fire everything we have at their biggest ship. Ben Carter pressed the firing controls. The UES Retribution's main battery spoke with the voice of humanity's fury. Antimatter. Warheads crossed the space between the fleets in 17 seconds. The Krek's heavy cruiser Bone Crusher simply vanished in a flash of pure energy. Where a 2-mile-long warship had existed, there was now only expanding gas and radiation. Vexak's laughter stopped. His yellow eyes went wide with shock. Begau, centuries of conquest. No enemy had ever destroyed a Krek ship that quickly. Impossible, he whispered. Stone's voice came over the radio, speaking to every Krek ship in the fleet. You were warned. Now learn what happens when you threaten our friends. The Battle of Cathera had begun. The Krek's dominion was about to meet. The species from Earth, the third planet of an ordinary yellow star. They were about to discover why that world was called a death world. The space around Cathera erupted in fire and death. Human warships opened up with every weapon they carried. Antimatter warheads turned Krek's vessels into expanding balls of plasma. Kinetic weapons hit with the force of meteors. Nuclear pumped, lasers sliced through alien armor like paper. Commander Jake Harrison watched the battle unfold from the bridge of the UES Retribution. His ship's weapons crews worked like machines, loading and firing as fast as the systems would allow. Each shot was aimed with deadly precision. The Krek's fleet was in chaos. They had expected easy prey, not a real fight. Their ships were spread out in blockade formation, perfect for hunting refugees but terrible for battle. Human tactics split them apart and destroyed them piece by piece. Captain Danny Walsh's stealth destroyers struck first. The UES Vengeful Storm materialized behind a Krek's battleship like a ghost made real. Nuclear torpedoes slammed into the alien ship's engine room. The mighty vessel broke apart, its back snapped by the explosions. Danny's other stealth ships appeared throughout the Krek's formation. They targeted command vessels and supply ships. In the first 10 minutes of battle, the Kreks lost half their fleet coordination. Fleet Admiral Vexak screamed orders at his subordinates, but many of his ships could no longer hear him. Human jamming systems filled the radio frequencies with static and false signals. Captain Amy Peterson brought her heavy cruiser UES Ironhammer straight at the Krek's flagship. The massive alien dreadnought Conqueror's fist was 3 times larger than her ship, but Amy had no fear. She had learned to fight in the Belt Wars, where small, fast ships took on huge mining platforms. Size meant nothing if you could not hit your target. The Ironhammer's engines roared as Amy pushed them beyond safe limits. Her ship accelerated straight toward the enemy flagship. Krek's gunners tried to track her, but she was moving too fast and changing direction too often. At the last second, Amy fired her ship's main batteries directly into the Conqueror's fist at point-blank range. The antimatter warheads punched through the alien armor and exploded inside the ship's hull. Both vessels were badly damaged, but Amy was not done fighting. She ordered her boarding parties to prepare for close combat. Lieutenant Commander Rick Turner coordinated the human fleet's firepower from his position on the Retribution. His screens showed every weapon in the battle. He made sure that no shot was wasted and no target escaped. The Kreks were learning hard lessons about human warfare. Their enemies did not fight like civilized species. Humans used tactics that violated every galactic convention about proper battle. When Krek's Admiral Vexak tried to retreat his damaged flagship, human ships rammed it with their armored hulls. When Krek's captains called for surrender, human weapons officers kept firing until the alien ships were completely destroyed. The most shocking moment came when the Kreks threatened to bombard Cathera's cities in revenge. Vexak sent a message to Admiral Stone. Stop your attack or we will kill every Zilani on the planet. Stone's response was swift and terrible. Every human ship in the fleet targeted every Krek's vessel simultaneously. Hundreds of antimatter warheads locked onto their targets. Fire one shot at those civilians, Stone replied, and your entire fleet dies in the next 5 seconds. Try me. Vexak stared at his tactical screens. The humans were not bluffing. They had enough firepower to destroy his entire force instantly. No civilized species would ever make such a threat. No sane commander would risk mutual destruction over alien civilians. But humans were not like other species. They had evolved on a world where survival meant fighting impossible odds. They would die before they let innocents be slaughtered. Captain Amy Peterson and her boarding parties fought their way through the wreckage of both ships to reach the Krex flagship's bridge. They wore powered armor and carried plasma rifles. Behind them came combat engineers with explosive charges. The Krex crew fought back with their natural weapons, claws and teeth and brute strength, but human soldiers had trained for this. They moved as teams, covering each other and advancing methodically. Amy herself faced Admiral Vexak in single combat on the bridge of his own ship. The huge alien was twice her size and armed with energy weapons. But Amy had something he did not understand, the fury of a species that would not quit. She dodged his claws and put 3 plasma bolts center mass. Vexak fell to his knees, still trying to fight. Amy stood over him and spoke in his own language. You picked the wrong species to mess with. Throughout the battle, human medical teams risked their lives to rescue Zilani survivors. Even as the fighting raged, hospital ships moved to collect escape pods and damaged refugee vessels. The sight of human soldiers sharing their rations with alien civilians while their weapons still glowed from combat became famous across the galaxy. These were warriors who fought with absolute brutality against their enemies, but showed mercy to the innocent. The Battle of Cathara lasted exactly 4 hours and 27 minutes. When the last Krex ship was destroyed, the space around the planet was filled with debris and radiation. Not a single alien vessel had escaped to carry word back to their empire. Jake stood on his bridge and surveyed the wreckage. 38 Krex warships had been reduced to scrap metal and gas. The human fleet had taken damage, but every ship was still fighting. Admiral Stone's voice came over the communication system. All ships, this is Stone, battle assessment complete. Enemy fleet 100% destroyed. 0 survivors detected. Begin rescue and recovery operations immediately. The human crews went to work with the same efficiency they had shown in battle. Medical teams treated wounded Zilani civilians. Engineers began repairing damaged orbital stations. Supply ships delivered food and medicine to refugee centers. On the planet's surface, Zilani leaders watched human soldiers secure their cities and hunt down Krex occupation forces. These aliens from the death world called Earth had crossed the galaxy to help people they barely knew. Captain Danny Walsh's stealth ships were already moving toward the edge of the system. They would carry news of the battle back to human space and begin scouting Krex territory for future operations. The war was not over. The Krex Dominion still controlled dozens of worlds and enslaved billions of people. But their expansion had been stopped for the first time in 3 centuries. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when you threatened the friends of humanity. The Deathworlders had tasted blood, and they would not stop until every innocent was free and every aggressor was crushed. The age of easy conquest was ending. A new power had risen in the galaxy, and it fought with the concentrated fury of 10,000 years of human warfare. Admiral Marcus Stone stood in the command center of the captured Krex flagship. Around him, human technicians studied alien computers and weapon systems. The mighty Conqueror's fist was now a prize of war, its secrets laid bare to Earth's scientists. The battle had been over for 6 hours. The space around Cathara was clear of enemy ships. Debris fields marked where the Krex fleet had met its end. Not a single alien vessel had escaped to warn their homeworlds. Captain Amy Peterson sat in the ship's medical bay while doctors treated her wounds from the boarding action. She had broken 2 ribs and taken a plasma burn to her left arm, but she had captured the enemy fleet commander alive. Admiral Vexak was locked in the ship's brig, heavily guarded and barely conscious. The proud Krex leader could not understand what had happened. His species had ruled through fear and superior firepower for 300 years. Now he was a prisoner of aliens he had considered weak and soft. Commander Jake Harrison supervised the rescue operations from his ship's bridge. Human medical teams worked alongside grateful Zilani doctors to treat refugees and repair damaged stations. The orbital cities around Cathara were scarred but intact. The Zilani people had gathered in the streets of their cities to watch human ships patrol their skies. Children who had hidden in shelters now came out to see the aliens who had saved their world. Many of them had never seen a human before. Captain Lisa Rodriguez translated the messages of thanks that poured in from across the planet. Zilani leaders sent formal gratitude to Admiral Stone and Earth's government. But the simple words of ordinary civilians meant more. Thank you for coming. Thank you for caring about us. Lieutenant Commander Rick Turner cataloged the captured Krex weapons and technology. The alien ships carried advanced shields and powerful energy cannons. But their real weakness had been tactical. They had never learned to fight an enemy that fought back with equal fury. Captain Danny Walsh's stealth destroyers had already departed the system. They carried orders to scout deep into Krex territory and map enemy positions. The war was far from over, but humanity now knew it could win. News of the Battle of Cathara spread across the galaxy faster than light. The Galactic Council received detailed reports within days. For the first time in living memory, someone had stopped a Krex expansion fleet. On dozens of worlds suffering under Krex occupation, resistance groups heard the impossible news. The mighty Dominion had been defeated. Their fleets could be destroyed. Hope began to spread through the darkness. The Krex Empire itself was in shock. Their high command had lost contact with Admiral Vexak's entire fleet. Long-range sensors showed only debris where their ships should have been. It was impossible, but it had happened. For the first time in their history, the Krex faced an enemy they could not intimidate or overwhelm. The soft mammals from the small blue world had teeth and claws of their own. Admiral Stone established his headquarters on Cathara's largest orbital station. From there, he coordinated humanity's response to requests for help that flooded in from across the galaxy. The Thorian Republic had been paying tribute to the Krex for 50 years. Now they asked if humans could help them break free. The Mintakan colonies had lost half their population to Krex slave raids. They begged for protection. Stone created the Terran Defense Initiative within a week of the battle. Any civilization threatened by the Krex could request human military protection. In exchange, they would share technology and resources for the common defense. 12 species signed up in the first month. More followed every week as word spread. The galaxy was waking up to the possibility that the Krex could be stopped. But Stone was not content to simply defend against future attacks. He knew that the only way to end the Krex threat was to destroy their empire completely. Evil that was allowed to exist would always find new victims. Jake Harrison was promoted to Admiral and given command of the new Second Fleet. His mission was to liberate Krex-occupied worlds and hunt down their remaining forces. It would be a long and bloody campaign, but humans had the will to see it through. Amy Peterson recovered from her wounds and returned to duty. She was given command of the Marine Expeditionary Force, specializing in ground combat and boarding actions. Her tactics at Cathara became required study at every military academy in human space. The captured Krex technology proved valuable, but not revolutionary. Human weapons were already superior in most areas. What mattered more was understanding how the enemy thought and fought, knowledge that would save human lives in future battles. 3 months after Cathara, the second major battle of the war took place at the Draxon system. A Krex punishment fleet arrived to destroy a world that had stopped paying tribute. They found human warships waiting for them. The result was the same as at Cathara: total Krex defeat, 0 survivors. The pattern was becoming clear across the galaxy. Wherever the Krex met humans in battle, the Krex died. By the end of the first year, humanity had liberated 18 worlds from Krex occupation. Each victory brought new allies and new resources. The Terran Defense Initiative grew into a true coalition of free peoples. The Krex tried different tactics. They sent larger fleets. They used different formations. They even attempted negotiations. Nothing worked against an enemy that had evolved to be the perfect predator. Admiral Stone stood on the bridge of his flagship, 1 year after the Battle of Cathara. Reports from across the galaxy showed Krek's forces in full retreat. Their empire was collapsing as world after world declared independence. The final blow came when the Krek's homeworld itself came under attack. Human fleets surrounded Krek's prime and demanded unconditional surrender. Faced with the total destruction of their civilization, the Krek's high command finally gave up. The surrender ceremony took place in orbit above Cathara, where it had all begun. Representatives from 100 worlds watched as Krek's leaders formally disbanded their empire and accepted occupation by human forces. Admiral Vexak, who had started the war with his arrogant laughter, was tried for war crimes and executed. His last words were a warning to his own people. Never fight the Deathworlders. They do not know how to quit. The galaxy had learned a fundamental truth about the species from the third planet of a yellow star. Humans could be generous friends and loyal allies. They would share their knowledge and protect the innocent. But to their enemies, especially those who preyed on the weak, they brought total destruction. Children across 100 worlds grew up hearing the story of how Earth's warriors had crossed the galaxy to answer a cry for help, how they had fought impossible odds and won through courage and determination. The Terran Defense Initiative evolved into the Galactic Federation, with humanity at its heart, not as conquerors, but as protectors. The strong defending the weak. The survivors of Earth's harsh evolution, ensuring that no world would suffer alone. And in the deep archives of the Galactic Council, a new entry was made in the files about dangerous species. Humans, Deathworld origin, do not threaten their allies. Extreme response guaranteed. The universe was a safer place. The predators had learned to fear the children of Earth.